Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve, aka the Church Tourist, and today I'm doing a question and answer for you. So first of all, thank you to everyone. I only posted a message last night, about 12 hours ago, for some questions for this, and I've had quite a few come in, enough to do a video anyway. So I'm going to get on with it and answer these questions for you. So the first question comes from Rosie, and it's, what's the difference between a grade 1 and grade 2 listed building, and what decides the difference? Also, are they protected when they're designated? Right, that's a really good question. So here in the UK, after the Second World War, we started to try and protect our buildings. So we have three different grades. There's grade 1, grade 2 star listed, and there's also grade 2. Now, grade 2 is the most common, and roughly 92% of the buildings that are listed are through grade 2. And this simply means they've got a special historic interest to the nation. Now, grade 2 star is roughly 5.5% of the buildings, and that means more than a special interest. And grade 1, I think it's only 2.5%, and this means exceptional interest. So I think originally this was a great idea and probably was there to help. But because of the modern day world, there's so much red tape, I think it's actually hurting these buildings. So the next question is from a Graham, and I apologise if it's going to do lots of clips because this is the first time I've really done this, so do excuse me. I heard you say on one of your videos you visited a church while out on your bike. What do you ride? Nice question. So I don't go to these churches on my bike because often it's quite hard to park and I can't take much gear on my bike. I've always been into sports bikes, so Fireblades and ZX10s. At the minute, I'll put a picture up now. I've got the ZX636, a lovely bike. And this picture is taken right outside Penafan, so on the road to Brecon, which I often go down. And this is a guy who sits there with a camera, professional camera, and he takes photos, and you can go online and you can pay for a photo. So I thought it'd be a nice touch. I did this last year. So this is actually me on my bike. So thanks for that question. Are you still going ahead with the church renovation project? That's a really good question and one I want to talk about. So the news on the church I've been trying to buy in Lower Chapel is not good. It's had someone else put an offer onto it, and I believe they would like to turn it into an art gallery, which is, at least, if they get it, it should protect it for a while. My problem is, because I'm self-employed, to get that church, I'll have to put my own house in danger to get a mortgage, because you can't get a mortgage on these old buildings because the banks don't want any risk at all. I've got to have all the risk. Now, my issue with it is, for example, if you're a charity like the Friends of Friendless Churches, which are a brilliant charity, they get given these churches for free. Well, in fact, it normally costs them £1. Again, this is all red tape and ticking boxes. So, for example, that church would be given to the Friends for free, but they wouldn't be interested because it's not even a grade listed building. So, but they want me to pay 80 grand for it. And I kind of get it. If you had lots of permission to do what you want, turn it into a house, bulldoze the gravestones, and you're going to get a lovely bit of land. But that's not what it's about. You've got so much strict rules when you buy a church. And of course, my goal is to save a church. I don't want to particularly live in it. I want to keep it as original as possible and keep the history going. Hence, this is why my whole journey started in the first place, and why I started to document all these churches. So I haven't given up. The offer that they've been given may be very low. The solicitors rang me up and told me they've had an offer, but they won't tell me nothing else. So I don't know if they're trying to play a bidding war, which I can't play anyway. So, but this church may well go into an auction at a future date, and maybe I'll be able to buy it. If not, there's plenty of other churches. If you watched my video I did couple ones back, it explains how many of these churches are being closed. So I'm not worried about getting a church. It has to be the right one, because it's going to be a lifetime commitment for me. It's not just a bit of fun. And for you guys watching the video, it is fun, and hopefully you enjoy the videos, and it is a bit of fun. But for me, I'm taking it really serious, because this will be a lifetime commitment, and it's not something you can walk away with, and you can't really sell it on, and I wouldn't want to either. So while I'm here, I want to say thank you to everyone who donated to my GoFundMe page. All that money is in a separate account. It's there waiting for me. As you can imagine, there's lots of costs involved. So yeah, hopefully that answered that question well. I'll keep everyone posted. I kind of think sometimes I jinx myself, because I'm a very private person in real life, and I would never tell people my plans. But of course, I want you to come on this journey with me. So I'm telling you stuff, and then it's sort of backfiring on me. So the next church I find, I might keep it a bit more quiet. And maybe one day I'll just surprise you and say, I've bought a church. How great would that be? Okay, on to the next question. And I'm not sure who this person is, but there's two questions. The first one's a question about church towers. Many times they have areas on top which appear to be similar to sentry posts, similar to castles. Did churches have lookout guards in the early days? A lot of the churches I visit are in Wales, as you already know, and often the church will be the oldest building in that village, and sometimes the village is named after the church itself. So back in the day, especially in the Norman times, in the 11th, 12th century, whatever, these buildings were built like that. So they would have had guards on them. So if there was a Viking attack, or later on civil wars, there was protection, which makes sense, because often you go to these churches, and if they're closed, you've got no chance of getting in there, because the doors are really thick. And as you say, a lot of the towers are about 5 foot thick, 1.5 meters plus, So yes, the answer is they were a bit more like a castle. So this leads me to think, were they built as churches, or were they built as more like a communal centre at the start, and then religion was added into them? Anyway, on to the next question. I read somewhere that many Anglican churches have the chancel located in the eastern side of the building. Is that true to all parts of the world? So firstly, I'm definitely no expert on the rest of the world, so I cannot answer that. But regarding churches here in Britain, most of them will face east. And I think that was the way they used to do it in the old days. So you get the morning sun rising up through the altar window, through the east window. Not all of them are. And I read up that a lot of the churches that are in bigger towns and cities, sometimes they couldn't do that. So they might be facing north or something to squeeze the church in. But I would imagine the original churches back in the day, when there wasn't the infrastructure around them, they were probably built all facing east. Funny enough, when I went to the Lower Chapel Church, the one for sale, Saint told me, I wonder if this is facing east or not, because you don't know by just being there. So on the Apple iPhone, there's an app, a compass app. So I set it up, and it was facing way off east. It was kind of easterly, but more like north direction. So I'm not sure why that church has done that, because that was built in the 1790s. I'm sure they had the technology to face east, but again, there must have been a reason. But so to answer this long-winded answer, yes, most of them, and in my opinion, they should all be facing east. The same as gravestones in the graveyard, they should be facing a certain way, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they're facing all over the place. Anyway, I hope that answered that question. On to the next one, and this is from Brenda, and she got two questions as well. The first one: which churches made the most impression on you, whether by its beauty or spookiness? That's a hard question, and I had a quick think about it. I'm going to say two, and again, I'll put them up on the as a picture. So I've done videos of them. The first one is the church at Betworth Penpont. there's something about this church I just love. So if you haven't watched the video, not many people have, please watch it after this. It's just a really lovely, unique church. And even though it's on the main road between Brecon and Llandovery, it's sort of set down below, so you can easily miss it. So yeah, that's one of my favourite churches. And another one, I'll put the video up again. This is probably one of the spookiest ones and really interesting. It's a one run by the Friends, and I didn't really overdo it on the video, but there was orbs flying around. There was weird banging going on. It was quite spooky in there. I would definitely not go there at night time, but at the same time, it was really beautiful. You could feel history. So again, if you haven't watched that video, go and watch it now because it's a good one of my better ones. I actually took my wife there after she saw that video, and she felt the same. When we went there together, she was like a bit spooked out. It's I don't know if you call it scary or magical or what, but if you ever come to the South Wales area, it's definitely a church you want to go and visit. And her next question is, what is the oldest church stroke graveyard you've ever explored, and where is it? Now, I had to sort of Google this because I've seen lots of different buildings, and I think the oldest one I've been to is St Iltard's. I'll put it up now. So I've done a video as well. Now, I believe there's been a building on this site since around 508 AD. Although none of these churches I visit are that old, they've always been rebuilt. The history is still there. So again, I think this has had 10,000 views, so plenty of people have watched it, but it's a really, really good place, interesting. And I would say that's probably the oldest place I've looked around. Next question. Have you visited any churches that gave you a sense of peace, well-being, or sensed positive energy? That's a great question, because I know on this channel, a lot of my videos might be perceived as being a little bit negative and as if I'm putting the church down, which is not my intention. Often I go to churches that are redundant, or they're getting close to being redundant, unloved. And you can feel that energy. You can feel it's unloved, and it often feels quite dark. Now, some people don't get what I'm saying, but others who do, comment below, say if you agree with me. But I would say the churches that feel the best are the ones that are active. And I don't mean the modern day churches, I mean the old churches that are still being loved. And probably, I'll put it up again now, St Bartholomew's was my favourite church. It's quite remote there, and it's a big old place, so you'd think it might be a little bit spooky, but it felt warm, it felt inviting, it was bright. Everything about it just felt nice. So again, that's one of my better videos. It's done better. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch that one too. Also, that has got one of the most awesome yew trees you'll ever find. And I did actually film myself sitting inside the tree, but I was so embarrassed I never put it on. Okay, on to the next questions. I've got a couple from this subscriber. What caused you to become interested in churches, and does my wife share my avid interest in churches? That's quite a hard question. I'm not really sure why I'm so into them, apart from, as like yourselves, they're just amazing. You know, they're like castles, but more interesting. Regarding my wife, yes, she's really into them. And in fact, she's the main reason I'm so interested in them. On our first date, which would have been 20 years ago, there or thereabouts, we went to a graveyard, which sounds really weird. It wasn't my idea, it was her idea, and it was really cool, really chilled out. We did go to the pub later on, so it wasn't just at the graveyard. One of the main reasons we moved to Wales from England, apart from house prices, was because Wales is full up with castles, churches, and history. So I convinced her that Wales was the place to go, and I promised her when we moved here, which was about 9 years ago, I would take her to lots of places, which I did. And now it's turned full circle, and I'm the guy going around on my own doing all these tours, and she sits at home and watches them. So she's quite happy just to watch them on the videos, which is quite cool. And from the same person, can I do a video on the symbolism on gravestones? Yes, definitely. I did do quite a few of these when I first started, and they were mostly in short form. I really liked them, but I got rid of all my shorts because it was attracting the wrong kind of person to the channel, people with very short attention spans. So the last question from this person is, please can you share some of your experiences with ghosts and what makes you believe in them? Well, I've had lots of experiences. And again, I did do a series about 5 or 6 episodes on this back in the day, and then I wiped it all off. So probably the quickest ghost story I can tell you was the night before my brother's wedding, and he was getting married about 3 or 4 miles outside West Wickham, and we stayed at a lovely hotel the night before. So this is the one here. It's a really old one, and I found out since I stayed there that it's actually a very big ghost hotspot. So we had a meal there and a couple of beers and went to bed fairly early because the wedding was in the morning. So I'd say about 2 in the morning, I was awakened by something, and I looked, and at the end of my bed, there was, I can only describe him as a Victorian man with a beard, like side chops type beard. And he just stared at me, and it seemed like for a long time. And all I did was stare back. I was like, what's going on here? And then after about, I don't know, 20 seconds, he walked right past the bed, and then he walked through the door. And I don't mean he opened the door, he walked through the door and vanished. So this is why I believe in ghosts, because I've seen them. And this is not the only time I've seen something like that happen. So most people I tell a story to just say, I must be dreaming. I must have still been asleep, which I wasn't. I clearly saw it. The strange thing was, I think because I had just been asleep, I was very calm and I wasn't freaked out. And even the next day, I sort of woke up and I thought, oh, I saw a ghost last night. But then I had to carry on with the whole day of the wedding. So just got on with my life. But yeah, it's happened quite a few times in my life where I've actually physically seen a ghost. But I've experienced lots of other things, probably because I'm into this kind of stuff now. I would say more like poltergeist or maybe even demons I've experienced. But I don't want to go into that today. On to the next question. Can you clarify which churches remain Catholic or what they are now? So the quick answer is nearly all the churches I visit are Anglican churches. And back in the 16th century, we had the Reformation, which was made by King Henry VIII, who wanted to separate himself from the Catholic Church. So all these old churches would have originally been Catholic, but they were turned into what we call the Church of England or Anglican churches back in the 16th century. And to me, they are very similar to the Catholic religion anyway, because I was brought up as a Christian, more like a Protestant, and there's a lot of differences there. So yeah, the answer is they're not Catholic churches now, but they were. And apparently there are a few churches, and especially up in Scotland, that are still Catholic. They've always been Catholic, even through the Reformation. And I've never been to one, and that would probably make a great video. So maybe one day we'll do that. Next question is from Patrick. Have you been outside the UK? If so, what did you think of the churches where you went? I've never been to outside the UK to film for doing this channel. Something I'd love to do. But yeah, I travelled everywhere when I was younger. And around 22 or 23 years ago, I actually lived in Spain, in the city of Valencia. So that is a very Roman Catholic, well, country, but also the city is very old, and it's quite amazing. My girlfriend at the time actually told me she wanted to get married inside the, I think it's St. Mary's there, the main cathedral in Valencia. that is an impressive place. But yeah, I'd love to go back to Spain and look at the buildings with my perspective now. Also, I went all around Italy when I was younger, and obviously that's the home of Christianity, I suppose. That'd be great to go back there. But yeah, more realistically, I'd like to go to Scotland and Ireland, which of course I've been to lots of times. I've worked in both Scotland and Ireland, beautiful countries, but I've never been there for the channel to film churches. So that's a more doable thing. But yeah, the dream would be to go around the whole of Europe and visit all these churches. Maybe if the channel becomes bigger, I could do that one day. And on to my last question, also from Patrick. What do you think is the biggest threat to old churches? Now, that is a really good question. You probably think I'll say the government, and they're not very helpful. They don't seem to really care about us, but it's not the government. We need to stop giving them so much power. It comes down to two reasons, really. Us, the people, we're not going to churches anymore, so it's kind of our fault we're losing them. But even more so, I would say it's the church itself. Now, what do I mean by that? I go to a lot of churches, and when I visit a church, and I'm not talking about the ones that are in town centres, more the ones in villages and remote areas. When the door is locked, to me, that's a big no-no. So all these churches that have their doors actually locked, unless there's a meeting going on, really are going to be in trouble. I would say this kind of church will be closed in the next 5-10 years, maybe sooner. But then you'll go to another church and it will be open, and there might be a sign saying come in, but you'll go in and you won't find a collection pot anywhere. You definitely won't find a card reader. And worse, you won't even find any information, like a little leaflet or postcards or something like that, as if they're not trying, you know. And a lot of these people, I hate to say it, are gatekeepers. They love their little church, and there's maybe 10, 15 people go there. It's kind of, they don't want to share it. The problem is, if they don't share this with the general public, they will lose it, because they're going to be crying when they need a new roof, and they might go, oh, we need to get some money from people, or maybe the lottery will help. But there's not enough money to go around for all these churches. So I would say these churches are in real danger. Not to end on a negative, I would say the churches that have the best chances of survival now are the ones you go to, like St Bartholomew's. You walk in there and it's inviting. There's light switches that you can turn on. It's got obviously a lot of love still there. People are still going to that church, but also they're not afraid to ask for help. There's a good collection box there. You'll find books. I think that church, I bought 3 or 4 like little information books, which, you know, probably cost them £1 or 2 to make, but they're giving you something and they're getting something back. So what I'm trying to say is, the churches that help themselves and they realise without the modern day world, shall we say, they have got no chance. These are the churches that will survive. People like myself who want to buy and save a church should be encouraged, because you can't put all the responsibility on just charities. If there was, 1,000 people like me who wanted to save 1,000 churches and dedicate their life to that one particular place, then I think it would be great, But not even that, you need the communities. So if you live in a village and your church is closing, the people who care, maybe there's 10 of you, maybe there's 20, should come together, try and buy that church and look after it. Because you can't rely on charities, and you definitely can't rely on the government to do it, because they'll be more interested in spending our money on a different religion, which I'll say no more. Anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up right now. I'm going to try and cobble it all together, because I must have got 1,000 takes on my camera. So hopefully it will come out okay and make a bit of sense. I've got some exciting news. I've just started a new channel, which is my other passion, which I'm not going to talk about today. In my next video, I'll probably mention that. The thing is, I don't want too many people coming from this channel to that one if they're not actually interested in the subject. But there'll be more on that later. Yeah, also before I go, if any of you have your own YouTube channel and you'd like to do a collaboration with me, please let me know. I do watch lots of you, and there's some great channels out there, much better than mine. Some are a lot bigger, some are a lot smaller. That doesn't really bother me because some of the smaller ones are actually better. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. Also, if you did enjoy this video and you'd like to see another question and answer style one, leave a question in the comments below. If you want me to answer it directly straight away, I can. But if you want it to be a question for a video, state it well and put your name there so I know who I'm talking to. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all really soon.